ordered to return. What time does she need to be here?
9 o'clock, Your Honor, will be fine.
9 a.m. tomorrow, which, yes ma'am.
You know, sir, I'm supposed not work from today. I'm not coming off until Monday, so I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
No, I'm going to work today. I asked them for the time to come today. So I'm going to start a new job today, 12. So I'm not coming off until Monday. Could you give me Monday? Can I come on Monday?
No. No, you have to come tomorrow at 9 a.m. You're under a court order to do so. Do you understand that? Do you understand? And do you understand if you fail to appear that law enforcement will be sent to find you and then you will be brought before me for contempt proceedings, which means if I do find that you willfully failed to appear, meaning if you choose not to appear and I find that you chose not to appear, I can put you in jail. Do you understand that? Do you have any questions about that?
No.
Okay, so you understand that you must be here at this courtroom at 9 a.m. tomorrow, which will be Thursday, September 19th. Do you understand that?
Okay.
Anything I need to, questions you have about that?
I was supposed to ask him, but they say I have to be here, so
Yeah, you have to tell your employer you have to be here. And so I don't anticipate you'll be on the witness stand all day. You'll probably be done by around lunchtime tomorrow. So you just need to let your employer know. Who's your employer?
Williams,
I'm sorry?
Williams what?
Richard Williams, but he's a caregiver, so it's a company I work with, but the lady was in the rehab, so she just come in today, so I'm going to start today with her. It's a new patient.
Okay, what service do you work for then?
All house.
Pardon me?
All house.
How do you spell that?
ALMSHOUN.
Okay, and where are their headquarters?
In St. Pete.
In St. Pete? Okay, well you need to let them know, because I know how this works a little bit, so you need to let them know that you will not be able to work tomorrow, and they need to find someone else, which they can do. That's what caregiver agencies do, is they find replacements when the original caregiver is not available for some reason. So do you understand? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else we need to put on the record?
No,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Harmon?
No, Your Honor.
I do, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
She can be reminded of this tomorrow, that she would not be excused after her testimony. She could be called for a second phase sometime next week.
That's fine, and I'll remind her as well. So you're under subpoena to appear until such time as I release you from your subpoena. Do you understand that? Is that a yes? You understand? Okay. All right, see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Okay, let's get the witness back on the stand.
Your Honor. So can we come up real fast?
Yep. Okay, welcome back. Let's bring in our jury.
Everybody ready?
All rise.
Okay, very good. Everyone have a seat. We are ready to proceed. State, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Shingleton, we were talking about states UA And let me ask you some follow-up questions on UA. Is the incident detail report or CAD report a document that is generated as a routine business practice or a routine practice within the communications center at the Temple Terrace Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And it's an incident report as to any 911 call coming in and all the follow-up activity that occurs.
Yes, sir.
All right, Your Honor, I have a tender states UA.
Okay, any objection? Submitted.
So I'd ask if you could, ma'am, to look over your right shoulder at that screen. I'm going to publish it up there over this Elmo. Okay, first of all, okay, thank you. This name right here, Gregory Vona, is that one of your dispatchers?
Retired dispatcher, yes, sir.
And at the time, was he a dispatcher on this date in May of 2014?
Yes, sir.
And is he the person who took the call?
He is the individual that took the original 911 hang-up, yes, sir.
Okay. And the incident location, is this going to be the address that the officer was sent to?
Based on the tower location, yes, sir.
Okay. If we move this over to the right, I believe. Let me show this real quick while I have it up. We have a callback number under that bottom circle. Is that going to be the number that the 911 call came in through?
Yes, sir, based on the Annie Alley.
727-288-3413?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the caller location, again, is the 124 Bullard Parkway, number 1, and then it says sector.
Correct, based on the antenna location.
The antenna location and the cell phone location?
Yes, sir.
All right. And there's, in addition to being an antenna there, there's also a fire station there,
Yes, sir.
fire department station.
Fire department number 1,
All right.
yes, sir.
Under the, so, Ms. Buttons, how do I get the circles to come out? Clear, right? Clear, okay. So under this column here, timestamps, are all of these where I'm drawing the line, are these the time stamps, or date stamps and time stamps that we were talking about earlier?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the phone is picked up on May 16, 2014 at 17:06:24, is that right?
24 seconds, yes, sir.
All right, so that would be 5:06 and 24 seconds p.m.
Correct.
Okay. First keystroke. Can you tell us again what that stands for?
The keystroke is the first keystroke.
Approximately 20, if my math's right, about 26 minutes in now. 24 minutes in.
Correct.
Okay. And then the incident is closed 5:35 p.m. and 18 seconds, is that right?
Correct.
All right.
That's when the officer provided the disposition.
And then the disposition is unable to locate, is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And again, here on this column, we have Unit 601, and that's going to be a police patrol unit.
Correct.
Is assigned at 5:22, is en route at 5:22 and 42 seconds, and arrives at 5:32 and 19 seconds, which is the same as this up
Correct,
here.
which correspond with the topses.
Okay. Then we have personnel assigned, again, Police Unit 601, and this is going to be Officer Tiffany Morris, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Over here in this column, are these going to be elapsed time from the, for these events to occur over here in the left-hand column?
Correct.
Okay. So we were about 28 minutes and 54 seconds after the call's received to when it's closed.
Correct.
Okay. And that's represented right here?
Correct. Incident duration, from the actual received in queue phone pickup to the disposition of the incident being closed out.
And is this the second page of the document?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we've looked at it in its entirety. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We have a date of 5/16/14. That looks to be not too far off from when the call's received.
Correct.
Okay. And this automatic buy system and response, what does that stand for?
If you go over to the right-hand side of the document, those timestamps and initials are based upon what these notes are placed into the call.
Okay.
So on that first timestamp, we have in there a premise, which means that at 124 Bullard Parkway, that location, there's an AED on premise located on the outside watchroom wall. That's an automatic timestamp for that.
Okay. The AED is a
Defibrillator.
medical device defibrillator.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you have in this column that there is a wireless hang-up, meaning a wireless phone, and then the phone, after some seconds, is hung up.
Correct.
And then unable to leave voicemail.
Correct.
So that's going to be the callbacks, right?
Yes, those are the notes that were put in by Greg Bona via his initials with the other timestamps located on the left-hand side of the document.
Okay. And then what is the 505 aware of call holding?
This is telling me that 505 would have been the sergeant and or the corporal on the street at that point in time during this call, and he was made aware over the radio that this call was in holding.
Okay, so 505 is not a time, that's a unit number.
That's a unit number, yes.
Okay. And then zone 2, is that one of the zones for Temple Terrace Police?
Yes, sir.
And then down here on the bottom, is this going to be the note of the responding officer?
Yes, they circulated the area for anyone in distress but had negative results.
Okay.
And all those timestamps are what correspond on the left-hand side.
Okay. We still have our closeout time of 5:35:19. I'm going to jump back to the first page real fast to our time stamps. Where in there are the callbacks occurring?
The callbacks are not going to show on this.
They're not showing on that, okay?
No, sir.
All right.
Not on the CAD event.
And in this case, there were 2 callbacks
Yes, sir.
that went to voicemail.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, that's going to be reflected right here, unable to leave voicemail.
Correct. Wireless hang-up, unable to leave voicemail.
All right. Now, under the column here, priority changes, we have a date and a set of dates, sets of times, and then change from priority. What do these columns represent?
That is each nature problem for the police and fire department has a priority. Priority 1 being your highest level priority. Priority 9 is a low priority on an attempt to contact. There were no priority changes. The timestamps themselves would be that either the individual picked it from a signal 45, which is a 911 hang-up. Initially, when a dispatcher receives a 911 hang-up, they make it a signal 45, hence a 911 hang-up. If they go from a 911 hang-up, they attempt to make contact on callback. If they can't make that contact to verbally verify that there's no one's in distress and there's no need for fire, medical, or police assistance, they then change it to a signal 17, which is an attempt to contact, which the officer then gets dispatched to. But in this case, the signal 17 and the signal 45 are both priority 9 calls.
Okay. So a low priority.
So it's a low priority at that point, yes.
And just over to the right, it says reason dispatch request, so that's a request coming from your dispatch?
Correct.
Alarm level changes, there is no alarm level change throughout.
Correct.
And this column here, what does this activity here stand for?
Activity log, date, time, radio, just, it's indicating that it came through an Annie Alley statistics location, which would be the phone system.
The phone system, okay. And then just going over to the right. There's a lot of activity in this log entry here. It looks like May 16, 1706-16, May 16, 2014, 1706-16. What do those, what are those, that information representing?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Okay. That one's something that's being generated that...
It's being generated through the TriTech computer-aided dispatch system. I'm unaware as to, I can't provide you a proper
Okay.
synopsis of what that would indicate.
And then activity log, is that similar to the first page where we had timestamps?
Yes. Just user action updates, incident late, dispatched, etc.
All right. Incident waiting in the queue is going to be the same?
Correct.
Okay. And then the dispatch, again, is going to be to the Bullard Parkway, Temple Terrace Fire Station 1.
Correct.
And then there we have the responding from location for the officer,
Based on the officer's GPS from the laptop, correct.
East Fowler and
Fowler
Morris Bridge
Avenue.
Road.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that would be out east of the area where the response occurred, where they were responding to.
Correct. It would
Okay.
be northeast. Yes, sir.
The last page of the record is going to come out so we can see it in its entirety. Now, this column here is labeled edit log, or I guess maybe this entire area would be the edit log, is that right?
Correct. The third page is a recap of your first and second page. It explains, see where at 5:16, at 16:06 and 37, the problem nature was a signal 45 911 hang-up. The dispatcher then calls back, unable to make contact, calls back again, and then changes it at 17:07 and 32 seconds from a 911 hang-up to a signal 17 attempt to contact,
So I wanna make
which
sure
is proper
everyone-
procedure.
Everyone can see this where we show it. Okay. So it actually says 911 hang up.
Yes.
Up here, it gives the incoming time of the call, right?
Correct.
5:06 and 24 seconds. On those same dates, is this recording the latitude and longitude coordinates of the cell tower?
Yes.
And that's how they came up with the 124 Bullard Parkway, number 1 sector.
Correct. Based on the cell tower and the GPS coordinates.
Now, if the 911 call comes in from a landline, is it going to give you an address?
It populates the physical address from the landline location.
And then you talked about a 911 hang-up, and that's shown on the record
Yes, sir.
as the problem.
Yes, sir.
All right.
The
And
original.
then here's the non-urgent status. P9-PD advised P5. Now, does the P5 mean it moves up in priority, or is that?
Yes, it moved up in priority when it went to a signal 17.
Okay. And signal 17 is a response,
Attempt to contact.
attempt to contact?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have you had an opportunity to review the actual recorded phone calls in relationship to this event that's recorded in this document?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as states U1, and I just ask you, does that appear to be a CD?
Yes, sir.
And does the CD contain a 911 call audio recording?
Yes, it does.
Have you had an opportunity to listen to this disc?
Yes, sir.
Is this the 911 call that's associated to this event that we just went through?
Yes, sir.
On May 16th around 5:06?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it an accurate copy of what was recorded by the system?
Yes, sir.
States U2, U is in uniform, another CD.
Correct.
And does this CD contain an audio recording of the first callback attempt by dispatch?
Yes, sir, it does.
Have you had an opportunity to listen to this?
Yes, sir.
Is it an accurate recording of that first callback?
Yes, sir.
States U3, another CD. Does this contain the second callback attempt by the 911 dispatch center?
Yes, sir.
And have you had an opportunity to review this?
Yes, sir.
When you review, is this an accurate copy of that second callback?
Yes, it is.
On all three of these, when you reviewed them, did you initial them and date them?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I would tender states U1, U2, and U3 for admission.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
They'll be admitted.
Move to publish, Your Honor.
Yes.
And we'll start with states U1.
Military 701.
If you could publish that one more time, Ms. Blevins.
Military 701.
And that recording, you can hear a noise in the background. Is that noise within the dispatch center?
Yes.
Okay. And that was Mr. Bona's voice.
Yes, it was.
So that was, nobody responds after he answers and they hang up.
Correct.
We can go to states U2, the first callback. Okay, and that callback, as we hear the beeps, that's the keystrokes going in where the call's being placed?
The beep beep, beep
Yeah.
beep, that means that there's another call on hold on that phone system.
No, I'm sorry. We hear it sounds like the noise of someone putting keystrokes in to make the call itself, to enter the numbers.
Yes. Well, upon receiving the initial call, I mean, not being in the room, but yes, you would have to hit the keystrokes in order to create the signal 45 and then attempt the callback, which would be keystrokes on, and then, yes.
And then that call goes into a voicemail.
Yes, sir.
Now, as he's putting in those, the callback number into the system, and we hear that noise, you were talking about, we hear this boop boop noise in the background like in a rhythmic fashion. That's a call waiting or a call?
That's a call that's on hold right now.
For
Another call.
Another call in the dispatch center?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's coming in, that's a noise being generated in the dispatch center?
Yes, sir.
And then all that noise we're hearing in the background is coming from the dispatch center?
Yes, sir. Other background noise.
All right. And then we're going to publish states U3. Okay, so in that recording, I believe that was 6 rings on the end of the phone before it goes into voicemail. The phone rings 6 times.
Okay.
And again, before that, we're hearing Mr. Bono putting in keystrokes to call the number back.
Correct.
All right. So the callback number is to this number, 727-288-3413.
Correct.
And that would be with both of those callbacks.
Yes, sir.
I'll tender the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ross.
Can I see the? You have a copy of the report in front of you, or no?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. On the top, on the front of the incident detail report, it says last updated June 5th, and then it has the time. And then above that, it has the incident date of May 16th at 17:06, which is 6 minutes past 5. What is this last updated? What does that mean? Do you know?
Can I see the
Sure.
the form, please?
Right there.
Okay, so it came from the data warehouse. Which would
If
be-
you could see what so it says, incident date 5/16/2014 at 17:06:29. That's the time of the initial call or the final call, right?
Correct. The incident date was on 5/16/2014. Correct.
Right.
Right.
And
last
it's
updated date.
right. What's that?
To my understanding, the last updated date is when the incident was actually printed from the CAD system.
Okay. Is there a way to manipulate any of the information that shows up in this report?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Now, I think you refer to it as a you refer to it as a signal 45?
Signal 45, which is a 911 hang-up originally. Yes, sir.
Okay. So signal 45 basically means 911 hang up.
Means, yeah, that yes, you just received the dispatcher just answered 911. 911 was the location of your emergency, and there was a hang-up. You create a signal 45.
Okay, very good. And I believe you had indicated that on the callback, it went straight to voicemail.
Yes, sir.
Now, I can't recall the first callback that we listened to, but the last callback we listened to, it sounded like it was ringing before it went to voicemail.
It was, yes.
Okay.
Both rang, but there was a longer ring from what I heard on the second time, but it went straight to voicemail.
Okay, so when you make a phone call and it goes straight to voicemail, to me it means you call and immediately voicemail picks up. That's not what we're talking about when you say straight to voicemail.
Okay, it went to voicemail.
At some point it went to voicemail, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, redirect.
So the first call goes to voicemail after 2 rings.
Okay.
Could that have been someone pushing the phone into voicemail?
Possibly.
Versus the second call where it rings 6 times and goes to voicemail?
I can only go by what I experience on my phone, that if I ignore a call, I ignore it, it'll go to voicemail, depending on how quickly I've ignored the call. If I'm on the phone and the call's coming in and I know I want to pick up on it, it will ring to a certain point and then still go to voicemail.
When you say ignore the call on your own cell phone, is that something you're pushing or something that
Yeah,
you're
it's ignore.
ignore? You're hitting an ignore
Yeah,
button?
it's
Okay.
like, not wanting to answer it.
All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Will this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you're free to go.
Thank you.
Okay, state card next witness.
State calls Detective Ellick.
Stop here in case the question is for.
Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this cause is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You'd step up this way, please. Have a seat and witness stand. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name, spell your names, both names?
Christopher Ellick, Christopher. Last name is spelled Ellick.
And how are you employed, sir?
With the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office as a detective in our Criminal Investigation Division, our Special Victims Unit.
How long have you been working for the Sheriff's Office?
Approximately 12 years.
And you've told us your current assignment. I'm going to go back to May of 2014. What was your assignment during that time?
I worked in our District 1 Street Crimes Unit.
And what kind of, or what did street crimes do? What did that unit do?
We served warrants, we combated drugs, helped out our detectives whenever they needed things done as far as finding people with serving warrants, and help out with missing persons if needed.
I'm going to call your attention to specifically, well, let me ask you this first. I'm getting ahead of myself. Are you a sworn and certified law enforcement officer pursuant to standards set by the state of Florida?
Yes, I am.
And do you have to be to work as a deputy sheriff here in Hillsborough County?
Yes, you do.
Okay, calling your attention to May 17th, which would have been a Saturday, 2014. Did you on that date, were you asked at some point to assist Temple Terrace Police Department with an investigation that was ongoing?
Yes, I was.
And you were working with your street anti-crimes or street crimes unit that day?
That is correct.
How were you dressed that day working with that unit?
Plain clothes.
And were you in a sheriff's office motor vehicle?
I was in a covert vehicle.
A covert vehicle. Okay, so not a marked patrol car.
That is correct.
Were you working out of a two-man unit on that date?
Yes, I was. I was working with Deputy Brooke Molino at the time.
I'm sorry.
Brooke Molino at the time.
Did the case you were asked to assist with, did it involve, at that time, a missing persons case involving a 9-year-old child named Felicia Williams?
Yes, that is correct.
Were you briefed on that case?
At that time, I was just briefed that we were assisting Temple Terrace with the search of locating the missing juvenile.
Okay. And did you and Deputy Molina respond to a baseball complex within the city of Tampa?
Yes, we did.
And where was that?
If I can refer to the report to get the exact address for you.
Sure, yeah. And just a general area really would be sufficient.
We responded to the Cyrus Green Park that's located at 2101 East Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
Is that also known as the Belmont Heights Baseball Complex?
Yes, that is.
Okay. Were there baseball games in progress on that Saturday when you arrived?
Yes.
And did you and Deputy Molina, did you canvass that park in an attempt to locate Felicia Williams?
Yes, we did.
Did that involve looking around yourselves for her,
That is correct.
as well as speaking with individuals inside the park?
Yes, and at that time we learned that other members of the community were already posting flyers and looking for her as well, because that's a park that she liked to frequent.
Okay. So that was known to be a frequent place that she would go on Saturdays.
That is correct.
And did you have a description, maybe even a photograph at that point?
Yes, we did.
Did you subsequently leave that location and respond to an area on U.S. Highway 301 North and Fowler Avenue?
Yes, we did. That's the Winn-Dixie.
It's a Winn-Dixie parking lot there?
Yep. Yes, it is.
And had you been directed to respond to that area?
Yes, we were directed by Sergeant Becerro.
When you arrived there, were you looking for a certain type of vehicle?
Yes, we were looking for a silver Lexus at the time.
Okay. And were you also looking for an individual driving that vehicle that went by the name of Granville Ritchie?
Yes, that is correct.
And once you arrived there, did you and Deputy Molina check the parking lot of the Winn-Dixie?
Yes, we did.
Did you locate the silver Lexus?
No, we did not.
And shortly after arriving there and checking that area, were you asked to respond to a business located on Hillsborough Avenue?
Yes, we did.
And what business was that?
I believe that was the Discount Auto Part.
Okay, Advanced Discount Auto
yeah.
Parts? I think they used to be two different businesses and maybe they combined.
Yes.
Can you tell us where that was located on Hillsborough?
Hillsborough, Nebraska. I can refer to my report and give you the exact address if needed.
Sure, yeah, if you could.
(901) East Hillsborough Avenue.
And were you requested to respond to that location in reference to the same silver Lexus?
Yes, that is correct.
And when you arrived there, were there other units there from the sheriff's office? Or did they arrive after that?
They arrived after.
Okay. And about, what did you do when you arrived at the Discount Auto Parts?
When we arrived there, I parked my vehicle facing Hillsborough Avenue, which would have been north, and I didn't see the vehicle in the parking lot, but I waited there, and shortly thereafter, I observed the silver Lexus pull into the parking lot.
If you're
close by the,
facing,
entrance.
if you're facing north and you're facing Hillsborough, would that have the business south, on the south side of Hillsborough?
Yes,
Okay. And at approximately 4:30 p.m., did that silver Lexus come into the parking lot?
yes, it did.
What direction did it turn into the parking lot from? What direction was it coming from?
It turned into the parking lot, going eastbound, and made a right-hand turn to go south into the entrance on the parking lot. I was parked in the far right, far east parking lot, or side, closest to Hillsborough, so the vehicle would turn in front of me and pass me.
Okay. And by that time, were there other deputies there, other law enforcement there
Yes.
from the sheriff's office?
That is correct.
So, if I understand you correctly, the car is traveling in, Hillsborough is an east-west thoroughfare?
Yes,
So the car is coming eastbound from the west heading east,
yes,
and it takes a right heading south into the parking lot?
that is correct.
Okay. And the car passed your car and then parked somewhere?
It parked close by the door to the business.
Did you have a driver's license photograph for Granville Ritchie?
Yes, we did.
And once the car stopped, approximately how far away from the vehicle were you when it stopped?
Approximately 15 yards away from me.
Did you observe someone exit the vehicle after it stopped?
Yes, I did.
And from what part of the car did they exit?
From the driver's side door.
And by use of that driver's license photograph, did you confirm that that was in fact Granville Ritchie?
Yes, we did.
And was he the only person that got out of the car?
Yes.
And did you later determine, or did Deputy Molina later determine that that was the only person in the car?
We both later determined that was the only person inside of the vehicle.
So no one else was inside the car?
Nobody else was inside of the vehicle.
And when Mr. Ritchie got out of the car, did he do something with a cell phone?
He appeared to be talking on the phone, and shortly later, short time passed, and he was greeted by other law enforcement personnel that was there.
Okay. And was he subsequently transported from that scene to the Temple Terrace Police Department?
Yes, he was.
Did you and Deputy Molina stay at that scene?
Yes, we stayed at the maintain visual contact with the vehicle.
All right, so your purpose was to maintain security on that vehicle, make sure you maintain visual contact with it.
That is correct.
Okay. And the vehicle, was it in fact a 1998 GS 400?
Yes, it was.
Did you happen to look into the back seat of the vehicle while you were there?
Yes, after he left, I reversed my vehicle to park next to the silver Lexus. I exited my vehicle and I looked through the windshield. Did not see anybody else inside of the vehicle, but I did see a dark colored suitcase in the back seat.
At approximately 11:45, so 23:45 military time, did you and Deputy Molina receive word from the Temple Terrace Police Department that a possible search warrant for the Lexus was in the works?
Yes.
And at some point, did a tow truck driver arrive at the scene?
Yes, that is correct.
And was that approximately 12 to 12:30 in that area?
That is correct.
So that would be going into the next day, May 18th,
That is correct.
early Sunday morning.
That is correct.
And at about 11:55, did other members of your squad then arrive at the scene?
Sergeant Balcero arrived at the scene, and a member of Temple Terrace Police Department arrived as well.
Okay. Do you remember a Detective Smith coming to the scene from the Temple Terrace Police Department?
Yes.
And did he, in fact, have a search warrant for the car?
Yes, he did.
Did he perform some type of a cursory search of the vehicle?
Yes, he did.
Just basically looking inside the vehicle?
That is correct.
At about 12:50 a.m. the following morning, did the tow truck do something with that Lexus?
Yes, that Lexus was towed from the store to our evidence section,
Okay, and is that located on Falkenberg Road?
2316 North Falkenberg Road.
Did you and Deputy Molina do something in reference to the vehicle as it was being transported?
We followed the vehicle to make sure it was not disturbed, to make sure the tow truck driver did not make any stops. It just made a direct path to the evidence section
And you maintained visual contact with the car?
during the entire process.
And once you arrived at the crime scene unit or section, did a crime scene technician from the sheriff's office take custody of the vehicle to process it?
Yes, our crime scene investigator, Terry DeWitt.
I would just ask, Detective, if you could look over your right shoulder at the screen. I'm going to show you a series of photographs. States O as in Oscar 10. And I just asked, Detective, does that appear to be the same gray Lexus?
Yes, it does.
States O3. Publishing.
Same.
And states O6.
That is the same vehicle.
I'll turn to the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, you're excused. State, call your next witness.
Will you have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
The state would call Detective Elmer.
Stop here first, basically, be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Step up this way, please, and have a seat on the witness stand.
Good morning, Detective Elmer.
Good morning.
Can you please state your first and last name for the record?
Yes, Timothy Elmer,
And how are you currently employed?
a detective with Temple Terrace Police Department.
And how long have you been employed with the Temple Terrace Police Department?
Since March of 2010,
And what's your current assignment and duties?
detective, persons crimes.
And what specifically do you do as a detective in persons crimes?
I currently investigate robberies, homicides, simple batteries, pretty much anything that has to do with a person.
And was that your assignment back in May of 2014?
No, at that time I was a property detective, property crimes.
And how was that position different from your position today?
That was basically anything that had to do with property, burglaries, thefts, criminal mischiefs, things like that.
Did you become involved in a death investigation involving a 9-year-old Felicia Williams?
Yes.
When is it that you first became involved in that investigation?
I was the on-call detective that night that she went missing.
And
Were you assigned any tasks that night? Was that on May 16th of 2014 or into the early morning hours of the 17th?
Early mornings of the 17th.
And when you say you're the on-call detective, are you at the Temple Terrace Police Headquarters, or are you at home and you will get a call that you need to respond in?
I'll get a call, and then I need to respond in.
So is that what happened in this case?
Yes.
And at what time were you asked to respond in, or did you arrive at the Temple Terrace Police Headquarters?
I think it was just after midnight, looks like 12:36 a.m.
And at that point, was it in fact, a homicide investigation, or was it a different kind of investigation?
Different kind.
And what kind of investigation was it?
Missing juvenile.
When you arrived at the Temple Terrace Headquarters, what did you do?
I was briefed by the officers on scene, what they had already done, and then I conducted an interview.
And were one of those officers Officer Martin Ramirez?
Yes.
Did you speak with anybody when you were there?
Other than Officer Ramirez?
Correct.
I interviewed Ebony Wiley.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I interviewed, I believe it was Ebony Wiley. Yes, Ebony Wiley.
And when you spoke with her, was it in fact there at the Temple Terrace Police Station or in a different location?
I believe it was at the police station.
Did you speak to or interview anybody else when you were there at that scene, or at the Temple Terrace headquarters?
No.
Did you ever make contact with Felicia Demerson?
I do not recall having direct contact with her, only what the officers told me.
Okay. So after you spoke with Ebony Wiley, what did you determine?
At that time, based on what I was told, we had basically decided that as of that time it was a runaway juvenile.
And was that based upon information you had learned from Ebony Wiley?
Correct.
So how is it that is anything done to change it from a missing persons investigation to a runaway?
It's just it's entered differently in the system, but they're treated the same way.
So is it in fact changed that it's not a missing person anymore?
It's a missing juvenile, but it's classified basically as a runaway at that time.
And so what did you do next?
After that, I contacted my supervisors, kind of let them know what was going on based on the age of the child, and then we contacted some of the resources we have.
And do you alert other officers about this missing juvenile, even though the information you had ascertained was that she had left on her own?
Yeah, we create like a BOLO and send that out.
Okay. And what is a BOLO?
A BOLO is basically a description of the juvenile, what they look like, what the circumstances are about the missing occurrence, and then basically just send it out so that they can be on the lookout for it.
And did you prepare that BOLO?
Correct.
And was that sent out just among Temple Terrace Police Department officers, or was it sent out also to surrounding agencies?
It's usually sent out to all the surrounding agencies, as well as our own officers.
Do you do anything else specific since this is such a young juvenile?
Yeah, we contacted the Amber Alert system, the people that handle that, explained to them what was going on. She didn't meet criteria at that time, so they basically assisted us with a child is missing alert.
When you say that she didn't meet criteria, what is there certain criteria that must be met by law enforcement or an individual that is claiming that someone is missing?
Correct, and they didn't tell us everything that she didn't meet, but it was under the assumption basically that because she was a runaway and not taken by somebody, or at least that's what we believed at that time.
And so you were not able to issue an Amber Alert,
correct.
Is that correct? Is there any other agencies that you contact with regards to the fact that this is a young missing juvenile?
Yeah, we also contacted the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Missing and Endangered Persons Clearinghouse. That's who we spoke to about the Amber Alert. But the other one was National Center of Missing and Exploited Children.
And what is that agency? Are you familiar with that agency?
What was that?
Are you familiar with, is it also titled NCMEC?
Yes. I wasn't familiar with them at the time. I was basically instructed by my supervisors to contact them, and they assisted in getting a wider radius, basically, of that BOLO.
And so were they furnished with the information in
Correct.
the photo? Okay. What did you do next, if anything?
Once that was completed, I contacted my corporal again, basically let him know where we were at. He decided to respond in because she was a runaway, and from the information we had, she didn't know the area very well. We determined, most likely based on what we've been told, she was probably out still somewhere trying to make her way home. So we searched the area for several hours.
And were you one of the officers or detectives that searched the area?
Correct.
Were you working alone or with anybody else?
Was working with Corporal Staley at that time.
And do you recall what areas you searched?
It was mainly the southern end of our city, based on where she had gone missing from. There's a place called Orange River, we checked that. Harney area, 56th Street, Sly area, kind of everything to the south of there.
Okay.
Just that general area, basically.
Were you ever able to locate her?
No.
Were there other units within Temple Terrace Police Department also out looking for this
Correct. The
juvenile?
patrol units that were working that night.
Did you continue working into the early morning hours then on that Saturday, May 17th?
No, I actually went home. After we searched the area for several hours, we determined there wasn't much more we could do at that time, and we went off duty.
Were you ever asked or given any assignments further with regards to this investigation?
Yeah, I was called back in relatively early that same morning, about 7:30 a.m.
Was that still then Saturday morning?
Correct.
2014, May
Correct.
17th, or May 17th of 2014.
Correct.
What were you assigned to do at that time?
At that time, when we were called back in, we went to the apartment complex, Doral Oaks, and just assisted in trying to do a follow-up neighborhood survey for people we hadn't been able to come into contact with that night.
And were you working alone at this time, or were you with any other law enforcement officers?
Several of the detectives were there. I don't recall exactly who all was there on scene.
When were you familiar with this apartment complex, Doral Oaks?
Yes.
And when you say that you went to assist with a second neighborhood survey, what is a neighborhood survey?
Neighborhood survey is essentially you go to all the, for this particular instance, it would be an apartment complex, so you would go to all the different apartments in the area that may have seen or heard something, knock on the door, try to make contact with the residents, and find out what, if any, information they may have heard, seen, experienced that might help us to locate the person.
And were you ever able to contact any neighbor or any individual that specifically gave you or that assisted in furthering investigating finding this missing child?
I did not know.
And why is it that you responded to Doral Oaks? Did you have information as to why that, specifically that apartment complex was?
That's where we were told she had gone missing from Ebony.
Was there a specific apartment number that you were aware of that she had last been seen at?
Yeah, I wrote it down. I wrote it off here now. 721.
Did you ascertain who in fact was the renter of that apartment?
Not at that time, but at a later time we did. Gloria Gibson.
And did you have at the time on the early morning hours of May 17th of 2018, were you ever provided the name of Trevor or Granville Ritchie as being a resident of that apartment?
Yes. So we went down, myself and Detective Smith, we were sent down to do an interview with her. Briefly after getting there, I received a phone call and had to step away. So most of the interview I did not hear, but I do recall her mentioning Trevor, yes.
Okay, so after you completed a neighborhood search within Doral Oaks, and were you familiar that law enforcement had completed a neighborhood survey earlier than 7:30?
We were told they were, that there was, yes.
Earlier than 7:30 a.m.
Correct.
on May, let me just finish my question.
Okay, yes, sorry.
On May 17th of 2014? An earlier one had been done prior to you arriving there?
There was one prior. I don't know if it was early morning of the 17th or if it was the night of the 16th.
And so after you completed the neighborhood survey, you said that you got negative results during that neighborhood survey?
Correct.
You were then asked to respond to speak with a Gloria Gibson?
Correct.
And where was it that you responded?
It was Bradenton area.
And you said you went with Detective Smith.
Correct.
Were you aware of whether or not this was his first interview with Miss Gibson, or if this was his second interview with her?
I did not know if he'd spoken to her before that.
Okay.
Basically just got sent with him.
Okay. And when I understand that you received a phone call shortly after arriving for her to be interviewed. Did you have any issues understanding her, the brief contact you did in fact have with her?
I don't recall having issues understanding her, but like I said, I had very brief contact with her because of that phone call.
Was there any interpreter called to that scene?
No.
To communicate or conduct that interview? Did you learn what her relationship was to this Trevor individual?
At a later date, but not at that on-scene interview.
Is that because you were on the phone while that interview was being conducted?
Correct.
And that was conducted by Detective Lee Smith?
That's correct.
While you're at that location in Bradenton, was your attention, or were you asked to respond anywhere else?
After the phone call, we went somewhere from there, correct?
And where is it that you went after you received this phone call?
Clearwater Police Department.
Was the phone call in reference to why you needed to respond to the Clearwater Police
Correct.
Department? And what was your understanding as to why you went there?
I received a call from my supervisors basically stating that the Clearwater Police Department had located a body that they believed it may match the description we had of our missing juvenile. So they asked me to, and myself and Detective Smith, to go over there.
Let me step back for a moment. Do you have a memory of Miss Gibson completing a written statement while you and Detective Smith were there? Or was your attention at, with regards to the information you were learning from Clearwater?
Correct. It was, my attention was on the phone call just because of the gravity of it.
Okay. And at that time, had you learned whether or not Clearwater in fact had received the BOLO, and whether or not it appeared to be the same juvenile?
From what I was told on the phone, they had received our BOLO, and that's how they had contacted us, was because they had some indication that that might be what we're looking for.
Did you respond to the actual scene of the location where the 9-year-old female was located, or did you respond to the Clearwater Police Department?
We went to the Clearwater Police Department. By the time we had actually headed down, I think everything had finished up there, from my understanding.
And where is it, who is it that you met with when you responded to the Clearwater Police Department?
At the Clearwater Police Department, we met with a handful of personnel from them. I think it was Detective Spalding that we met with.
Were you shown photos of the location where the female body had been located as well as the female body?
Yes.
Did you make any, or did you have any opinion with regard to that time, whether or not it matched the photograph in the BOLO?
General descriptors, yes, but it was difficult to say for sure.
And why is that?
There was some damage to the body that they believed may have been caused by the rocks.
Was there any discussion when you were there at the Clearwater Police Department about an autopsy being conducted on the body?
Correct.
And was that going to be done by the Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office or the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's Office?
Pinellas County.
And is that because the body was found on the Pinellas side of the causeway?
Correct.
Did you attend that autopsy?
Yes.
And when was that autopsy conducted?
That was on Sunday morning. Yes.
On Sunday morning, the 18th?
Yep.
And was Dr. Kurz the medical examiner that performed that autopsy that morning?
Yes.
Did you do anything while you were at the autopsy or in order to identify the victim?
So prior to the autopsy, we had contacted the dentist for Felicia and requested the dental records. They provided those at approximately 9 o'clock Sunday morning prior to us going to the autopsy.
And did you transport those to that autopsy?
Yes.
Were there items of evidence that you ultimately received from the Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office and then transported to the Secretary of Police Department for evidence?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I thought you were, you finished looking at your report?
Yeah, yes. I
What
had
were
some
those
items.
items that you had ultimately obtained from the Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office?
From them, I had a fingerprint card with prints from the deceased, a blood specimen from the deceased, head hair strand from the deceased, a vaginal swab from the deceased, a rectal swab from the deceased, a nipple swab from the deceased, the DVD with photos of the crime scene that Pinellas County Medical Examiner took, and then a DVD with photos of the autopsy that they took as well.
And so the photos from the crime scene, is that where the victim's body would have been retrieved from?
Yes.
What did you do when you received those items from the Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office?
They were impounded later into the Temple Terrace Police Department.
Was that the last thing that you did on May 18th of 2014 with regards to this investigation?
No. The dentist, I believe, also came on that day.
Was that Ms. Demerson's actual dentist or the odontologist?
I'm sorry, that was Dr. Lipton with the medical examiner's office.
And did he do his review of the dental records and of the victim in this case?
Yes.
Did you do any work on May 19th on this case, or were you provided any assignments on that day?
On the 19th, I do not believe so.
Were you provided any assignments on May 20th of 2014?
Yes.
What is it that you were assigned to do with regards to this homicide investigation?
On the
And I'm sorry, had this at some point turned from a missing person or a missing child, a runaway juvenile, to a homicide investigation?
Yes. At the time that the identification was made by Dr. Lipton.
And then when is it that, what is it that you did on May 20th of 2014?
On the 20th, our department was notified of a pair of female underwear that was located off of the causeway, and I went out there to see what it was and collect it if necessary.
Was this a law enforcement officer that had located, or a civilian?
It was a civilian.
And so did you respond out to that area where this clothing item had been collected?
Yes.
Where is it that you responded along the causeway? Was it on the Hillsborough side or the Pinellas side, if you recall?
It was on the north side, is what we put down.
On the north, okay.
Yeah, I don't recall if it was on the Tampa or the Clearwater side.
Okay. And when you got out there, what were you shown?
It was they basically pointed to where it was. It was in like a treed area, and it was a size 4 pair of underwear, female underwear.
And when you say in a tree area, were there trees surrounding?
Yeah, it was kind of off the service road, kind of between the service road and the water, where there's like sand and then some like treed plant area. It was in there.
Okay. And what did you do when you observed those items?
I contacted my supervisors, let them know what it was, that it was size 4.
Did you collect those underwear?
Yes, they did. Had me collect it just in case.
And were those clothing items ever shown to anyone to determine whether or not they may have possibly belonged to the victim in this case?
I did not know.
Did you know whether or not they had in fact belonged to this case?
I did not know. Mm-mm.
And you said you collected them. What did you do with them after you collected them?
They were impounded as a precaution at the Temple Terrace Police Department.
Do you notify other law enforcement officers that are also investigating or assisting on this case that you had located them and that you had impounded them?
Correct.
Were you aware whether or not other detectives had shown Ms. Demerson pieces of clothing that were located off the causeway?
I don't know.
Okay. Were you assigned any other tasks on May 20th of 2014 with regards to this case?
No.
Were there items that had been collected by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office from the crime scene area where the body was located that were ultimately impounded into the Temple Terrace Police Department?
Yes.
Do you recall on what day you received those items from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, that was on the the 18th, I believe.
On Sunday the 18th?
Yeah, I have those stop receipts. Give me 1 second, I'll just verify. I'm sorry, that appeared, it was the 20th, actually.
Okay. When you took custody of these items from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, were these in fact items that had been collected at the time the victim's body was located in the water there?
Correct.
Can you state which of those items or what items you did take into your custody from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office?
Okay. That was fingernail clippings, scrappings, wood scrapper left, fingernail clippings, scrapings, wood scraper right, black strap, condom wrapper number 1, condom wrapper number 3, condom wrapper number 4, control sample of distilled water, cotton swab, fingernail clippers, black rubber bands with hair from deceased, oral swab from deceased female, a cigarette butt with brown filter, a swab from condom wrapper number 1, a swab from condom wrapper number 3, a swab from condom wrapper number 4, and a blue tarp.
And that blue tarp, did you know or had it been identified as whether or not it was the blue tarp that the victim's body was placed on when she was pulled from the water?
That's what I was told, yes.
And what is it that you did with those items when you got them from Pinellas County?
Taken to the Temple Terrace Police Department and impounded.
Did that conclude your duties with regards to May 20th of 2014?
Yes.
Were you given any assignments on May 21st of 2014?
Yes.
What was that assignment?
The first thing was I was sent out to the Courtney Campbell Causeway to collect some samples of the plants along the side.
Where is it that you responded to collect? Well, first let me ask you, why were you told to go out and do that?
There was, from what I was told, a small plant sample from the exterior of a vehicle that was located.
And so what were you asked to do when you went out to the causeway?
Is basically just to take samples of the plants to, I guess, to be for comparison at a later date.
And how is it that you went about doing that?
I went down to the general area where the body was found. Coming from the Tampa side, heading towards Clearwater, looked for the first pull-off closest to where the body was found.
And how did you go about taking those samples from the plants?
At mile marker 3.5, I pulled off onto the service road. I got out and looked for the first area that it appeared plants were kind of coming into the roadway.
And when you were out observing that area in the causeway, were there areas where the plant material, the mangroves, were protruding into that access road?
Yes.
And so you picked some of the plant areas from the area where they were protruding into the road?
Correct.
Do you recall how many plant samples you collected?
7.
And how did you go about picking which 7 that you were going to collect?
Basically just started from kind of where I pulled off and walked down the roadway.
And did you document the area and the photographs of the plants that you did in fact collect?
Yeah, I took photos of the plants.
Detective, when you took these photographs, how is it that did the plant pieces, did they break off and then you collected them and put them in something?
I cut them off and put them into a bag.
What did you use to cut them off?
I believe it was a pocket knife.
Did you wear any gloves or anything such as that when you collected these
Not
plant
for the
items?
plants, no.
Detective, are you a plant expert or an expert in
No.
botany or anything such as that?
Absolutely not.
I'm going to show you what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit S1 through 13. Have you previously been shown these photographs?
I have viewed them.
Okay, and do they fairly and accurately depict the photographs that you took when you responded out to the causeway to collect the plant samples?
Yes.
State offers an evidence, State's Exhibit S1 through 13. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Admitted. Permission to publish, Judge?
Yes.
Publishing S1. And Detective, there's a screen behind you. Is this the area where you pulled off and you began to take the plant collection?
Yes.
S2. Is this a close-up of the area?
That is an overview of the first plant.
Were there what appeared to you to be different looking plants along that
Correct.
That access road? And is that why you took different samples?
Yes.
S3, what is this a photograph of?
That is it's a close-up of the first plant.
And S4?
That's a close-up of the second plant.
And S5?
Close-up of the third plant.
And in this area along this access road, is there also what appears to be dirt, sand material
Yes.
along the plants? And S6, is this another sample or
That's-
photograph of another sample that you collected?
Yes, that's an overview of plant 4.
And S7, is this a close-up of that plant?
Correct.
Do you recall the distance that you had to travel to collect all your 7 samples?
I do not know.
S8, is this another sample area?
Yeah, it's another sample area. I believe that is the overview of plant 5. If I'm keeping track.
And S9, is this another sample, a photograph of another sample plant?
Correct. That's the close-up of plant 5.
And did you take further ones that were further away and closer up?
I'm sorry?
Did you take photographs that were further away to show the whole area and then close-ups of the photograph?
Essentially.
Close-ups of the plants.
Yeah.
Publishing S11, is this a close-up of another type of plant sample?
And that one. Yeah, that's a zoom in at plant 6.
And then publishing, lastly, S13, a close-up version of, was that the last plant sample?
Yep. Plant 7.
What did you put these plant samples in after you collected them?
It was a paper bag.
Did you speak to any botanists or plant experts prior to taking your collections?
No.
And I'm sorry, you put them in a bag?
A bag. I don't recall if it was paper or plastic, but we did go into a bag.
And did you mark them?
Yes.
Were they put in all one bag together or in separate bags?
Separate bags.
And what did you do with those items after you collected them?
They were impounded at Temple Terrace Police Department.
Did you have any part in ultimately sending them off for any further review?
No.
Did that conclude your duties with regards to May 21st of 2014?
No, I had one other thing I did on that day.
And what else did you do on that day?
I was contacted by my supervisors and asked to respond to St. Pete to collect some items.
Yes.
What items were you requested to retrieve still on the May 21st?
Some items from the St. Pete Police Department that they collected from Granville Ritchie.
And then moving to May 22nd of 2014, what is it that you were assigned on that day?
On that day, I was sent over to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office to retrieve a vehicle.
And what vehicle was that?
That was a 1998 Lexus GS with a Florida tag at AES 137.
And where is it that you went and made observations of that vehicle?
Went to their forensic unit.
And what did you do once you were there and you observed that vehicle?
They had already contacted a tow company and they were having it sent over to us. So all we did was basically do the paperwork to take possession of it.
Is that after it had been processed by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
Publishing 07A, is this a photograph of the vehicle that you went and took custody of from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And where is it that that vehicle was taken via tow truck?
That was taken to the impound area for the Temple Terrace Police Department.
Did you conduct any further search of that vehicle when it was taken to the Temple Terrace Police Department?
I was not involved in a search of it. I was called over to collect a sample.
Did you locate any items within that vehicle that you ultimately then collected?
Yes, I collected some sand and soil samples.
And why is it that you did that?
It was believed that it may match some of the stuff from the causeway, the possibility that it could match.
How did you go about collecting those samples?
Using gloves, I collected a pinch from the front passenger floor side, and then using the same gloves in a separate bag collected from the rear passenger.
Detective, I'm showing you what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit AA1 and AA2. If you can please look inside the envelope without publishing it to the jury yet, and let me know if you recognize the items inside.
Yes.
And are they in the same or substantially the same condition as they were on the date that you collected it from the Lexus vehicle, which was on May 22nd of 2014?
Yes.
State offers into evidence State's Exhibit AA1 and AA2. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Permitted. Permission to publish? Yes. Publishing AA1. Is this plastic bag the bag that you had put the items in?
Correct. One of the items is correct.
And this red evidence tape that is marked and initialed, was that your writing?
Correct.
And this white sticker that's contained on the front, is that your writing and where you got it from?
Yes.
And so is this one gotten from the back passenger interior? And where was that? Was that on the floor, on the seat?
That was on the floorboard.
And it was on May 22nd of 2004, or May 23rd is when the sticker, you collected on the 22nd, and was it impounded on the 23rd?
That may have been an error in writing. It should have been on the, I'll tell you, hold on, maybe the property receipt, to be sure. Yeah, it must have been an error. The property receipt has the correct date of the 22nd.
And you weren't involved in any further testing that was done on this, is that correct? And when it is open for testing and repackaged, is it common that when it's repackaged that new dates and initials need to be placed on that item anytime it's opened and closed back up?
Correct, just a document.
Publishing States Exhibit AA2. Again, is this the bag that of soil, or the bag that you place the soil in that you retrieved from the front passenger side of that Lexus?
Yes.
And again, the white sticker on the front, you did in fact impound it on May 22nd of 2014?
Correct.
And were you involved in any further testing of this item on a later date?
No.
Can you go on that, Judge?
Yes.
Detective, when you were out at the causeway and you took the plant samples, did you know what plant, that little plant material that had been in fact located within the passenger headlight, what kind of plant that was?
No, I never saw it.
Okay. And so when you went out to the causeway, what was the purpose of taking 7 different plant samples from seven different types of appearing plants?
It was an attempt to locate a plant that would match or not match that piece.
And you had no idea what kind of plant it was that was in the headlight, is that correct?
No, I don't.
State would pass the witness, Judge.
Okay, Cross.
Good morning. The 7 plant samples that you took, was it just one of those that appeared to be a mango, or were there multiple mangoes?
I don't know anything about plants, so
All right.
I
So you
just
don't
basically went out there, visually looked at what I could see, and just worked my way down the road a bit.
Very good. The underwear that you talked about that you had located on May 20th of 2014, you took it into evidence as a precautionary matter, correct?
Correct.
And you say precautionary because from what you knew about the investigation at that time, it did not appear to you that that underwear was connected to the case.
So I called my supervisor and basically told him what size it was. I didn't have any kids or anything like that at the time, so to me it meant nothing. Size 4 meant nothing. So I basically called them, said, "You guys want me to bring this back or not?" And they said, "Yes, bring it back."
Sure, but if you want to take a look at your report, maybe to refresh your memory on the May 20, do you not conclude and indicate that the underwear did not appear to be connected with the case?
That was based on what the supervisor was
Sure.
telling me, that wouldn't necessarily be from her, is what they told me. So.
Right, so however you arrived at that decision, it appeared to you that it did not, it wasn't connected to the
Correct.
case. Okay. But you collected it nevertheless?
Correct.
Just in case, right? I believe you indicated that part of your duties on on the early morning hours of May 17, 2014, was to interview Ebony Wiley.
Correct.
And this was at the station.
Let me verify, but I believe it was. Yes. I'm sorry. Based on information. Yes.
And the story that Ebony Wiley told you at the station led you to spend several hours searching for Felicia Williams following your interview with Ebony Wiley. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The story included her telling you that Felicia Williams had wandered off and left the apartment.
Correct.
Okay. And it also included her telling you that the reason that Felicia Williams was with her is because he had gone to pick her up to discuss with her a concern about Felicia Williams coming to her workplace and that was causing her problems.
Correct.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, redirect?
Nothing further, Judge.
Okay, very good. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rita? Okay, yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's about 7 to 12, so it's a good time for us to take our lunch recess. So just remember my previous instructions while you're on the break, that you're not to discuss this case with anyone, you're not to do any independent research, and you're not to listen to, watch, read any news accounts related to this case. So why don't we go ahead and get started, let's say 1:15, we'll be back. I may try and break a little bit earlier today since I kept you all later last night, past 5, so I may try and give you a little break today if I can, all right? So very good. See you all back here at 1:15.
All right, jury exiting.
Very good. Jury's up in the courtroom. All right, what's our lineup for this afternoon? State.
Judge, we're going to have Officer Morris, who was the named officer who responded on the 911 call. She'll be brief. And then Detective Carroll, who I believe will be at least 2 hours.
Is that the defendant's statement?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's over an hour. So I anticipate he'll be on the stand by 1:30, 3:30 to 4 o'clock for his testimony. We had planned on putting on DNA evidence this afternoon, but that's going to be a while.
Well, like, how long is a while?
Probably an hour to an hour and a half. So should we plan on not doing that this afternoon?
Is there anything else you can do, a half an
Yeah.
hour or so?
Half an hour?
Or just not as long as 2 hours?
Right. You mean outside of the DNA?
Yeah, outside of the DNA.
We'll figure out. On the lunch break, Judge, we can come back and let you know.
Okay, that's
Try to
right.
get someone else in.
All right, and very good. And then is tomorrow going to be the medical examiner?
Yes.
Okay. And so I just want to talk a little bit to Ms. Demerson about yesterday. So I hope I didn't come off too harsh. I understand that this is all very hard for you. However, you've waited a long time for this day. Mr. Ritchie's waited a long time for this day. And what I have to do, it's my job to protect the integrity of these proceedings. So I hope that you understand that anything I say, anything I do, is for me to do my job to the best ability that I can to make sure that this jury reaches a true and just verdict. And that is for everyone involved in this case. All right? Okay, thank you. All right, see you all back here at 1:15.